Welcome. So today we are going to look at SQL, and we are going to install my SQL Workbench together, and then we are also going to discuss some of the different languages in commands in SQL, so that you're able to know clearly what is expected of the data analyst compared to what is expected of the maybe the data engineer or the database administrator. Because remember, in this 90 days of analytics challenge, we started with the soft skills, and we also mentioned the technical skills like Excel, SQL, Power BI, Python. So we've already done the tutorials for Excel. So if you haven't looked at that, you can always go back and check the previous videos. Now we are starting SQL today, and we are hoping to be able to carry on with Power BI, Python right up to the end, so that you're able to get those tools and those skills that are required to help you get the role as a data analyst. So you've been maybe learning Excel, and then now you come to the point that your data gets so big, maybe above millions of rows of data. Now you need to use something like SQL, because when that limitation is hit, Excel will not be performant. But now you can take on a tool like SQL, which can even work with billions of rows of data, and then you can take on from there. So that's why you need to learn something like SQL, especially if you will be dealing with maybe huge data. So what are some of the maybe the reasons or the uses of SQL in real life, so that you can understand why you need to learn it, and also it might motivate you to be able to take on the challenge seriously right to the end. The first thing is SQL is kind of like a programming language which is not used for programming tasks. So it's that's why it's always in the middle between, is it coding, is it programming language like Python, is it like R, is it like maybe JavaScript. So because you'll be thinking, is it something that is procedural, is it object oriented? So no, it's just there. And SQL is because it works with marketing, finance specialists. Everybody kind of like uses SQL, not necessarily for programming or like programmers. So that is one thing it cuts across. The second thing is almost all data roles use SQL. So as a data analyst, you would use SQL. A data scientist, you would use SQL. Data engineer, database admin. So you'll always find yourself using SQL, because you have to deal with data in one way or the other. And most of the time, maybe the database is a kind of database which is compatible with SQL, like relational databases. That's why SQL is really most very popular with databases, because like Oracle, Microsoft Server, Postgre, all those are relational databases, and they use SQL. On the other hand, you have NoSQL databases like MongoDB, DynamoDB. They are not a high proportion of the databases, so about 80% or more of the databases is SQL related. So learning SQL, you're going to touch much more of the databases, most of the databases, and as a data analyst also, you'll be able to use it in most companies and in most use cases. So the third thing why it's important is there is that fact that we are getting big data every day, and like I said with Excel, it has a limitation, but as data gets bigger, SQL is really very appropriate for that. And that is why you see most of the big data tools under the hood is SQL that is working under. So they might have clusters. The computing might be distributed to many nodes, many clusters, but at the end of the day, most of the commands you would write would be in SQL, and then SQL would just be the difference would just be that it is distributed between maybe many computers, or many nodes are doing the task. But at the end of the day, the SQL is what is the core that is giving the logic. So SQL will help you with big data, and as data keeps increasing every day, every year, we generate more data with all the smart devices, all the CCTVs, all the smartphones, the WhatsApp, the Facebook, whatever. So we keep getting more and more data, and which means SQL will keep getting more and more appropriate to help you solve big data related issues. So, and all this is what makes SQL in high demand. So you may see a job role. SQL may not be mentioned there directly, a data analyst role or a data science role or some programming role at some of them, but then it is in high demand still because they might just assume that you understand SQL, because most of the time SQL is not like complicated like maybe other low level programming languages, but then it's just that sometimes we don't put it on our to-do list, we neglect it, and then maybe when we need it, we are like confused. But then in reality, it's very simple, as you're going to see, and we're going to start from today with installing and then being able to continue to show you some of the key things, how to use SQL, how the data analyst will use SQL, and even some other related professions, how they would use SQL. So let's just go straight to the computer to install my SQL Workbench, because Workbench is an easy software which will be able to help us to write my SQL queries for free easily on our machine and be able to learn and practice, and it's very, 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 very helpful. So here I'll just Google it. So let's just Google and I'll show you. So you go to my SQL Workbench, and it's good to add community at the end. So so that you're able to get something related to the community, because most of the time people have difficulties installing the Workbench, because Workbench the MySQL, if you come for example here and you click just on this first one here, it will not be able to give you the Workbench. So what you need to do is ensure you're here with the MySQL community downloads, and then you go to download page. So ensure you click there. Then it's from this page now that you're going to take this one here. So I'm using a Windows computer, so I'm going to take this one, and then you can click here on download. Then now here is going to say now login now or sign up. So you can just say no thanks, just start my download. So you click here, and as soon as you click here, you see it starts downloading that. So for me, I've already downloaded this, so you can wait for it to download, and then when it's downloaded, I'll just pause this. So we are just going to go and get the one I downloaded already. So I'm just going to click there. I've already downloaded it, so preparing to install. So it's actually installing it now. So we'll just go through, and then I'll show you some of the things that you need to click and the things that you need to select so that you are able to successfully install my SQL Workbench, because at times installing it is not that easy. The systems are different. Some of the C++ things that there are so many dependencies. So just try to find a way to install it. This is one easy way, so that at the end of the day we are on the same page, so that from the next videos we continue to learn together. So I'm going to click on yes. So it's please wait while Windows configures my install community. So it's loading, and the SQL is really very interesting, as you would see, because I'll just take yes, because it is able to help you understand even at the basics how to maybe get into the database, get data from there. And at times analysts like to link the SQL maybe with something like Python pandas, or you can even take your data from SQL to Excel, or take your data from maybe your SQL database to Power BI. Come to custom when you get to this page, custom. So remember, you land here as developer default, and then you're going to see server, online, client, full. So it's good to choose custom so that you can come to select your products here. So if I go to next, it will go to select products. so that I can be able to select the products I want to install. Without going through this route, it becomes a bit difficult to install the Workbench. So I'm going to select first the server. So I want the MySQL server. So I'll click on this green button here to put it this way. So these are products to be installed. Then I'm going to look for the application now, which is my SQL Workbench. Click on this plus, click on the next plus here, and then we have Workbench 8.0. So I'm going to send it this way to the green, say, yeah, that's the next thing I want to install. And then let's say if you wanted to install the shell, you see, click on my SQL shell, click on the plus again here, and then when you get to the shell here, you click on this green again, and then you send it this way. So now we can go and check documentation. So let's go here, look for some samples. So click on the samples again. So this is just to get some sample data set that you can play with, and then you click again on next here. So these are the things that you want to install, and then you go to next, and you see the path exists, yes, but then we're just going through, so you see, and then we are you sure? Yes. So you just go through these steps, make sure you go to custom, select these products which are here, and then you execute. So you have the MySQL server, the MySQL Workbench, the MySQL shell if you want to, also the samples and examples if you want to, but it's good because you just have some sample database that you can play with. That just comes, you can be playing, and if you don't have real data, you can start playing with these samples and examples easily. So it's installing. As you can see, the server is installed, MySQL is installed, it's installing. So let's just give a couple of seconds for it to install, and then we are, yeah, so now it's on the shell. So without going through these steps, it becomes a bit difficult, and that's why at times people find it difficult installing MySQL, because when you just take the default, you have some challenges. But this is an easy way. Go to custom, select these products as you saw, and then you put them this way. So you're going to see that SQL is very simple as we are going to go through this days of challenge with SQL. It's not complicated. It's very easy to understand, very straightforward. Just maybe might be for the first time you're seeing it, it might just be, okay, I'm seeing something for the first time, it's a bit difficult, but it's not in reality complicated. It's just maybe because you're seeing it for the first time. So they are very simple syntax, straightforward, and very useful, and also very interesting. So now it's completed the download. I'm going to go to next, and then I'm going to click on next here. So now it says development computer type. I'll just leave that like that. This is the port 3306. If you want to connect to my SQL maybe through Power BI later, this is the port. So then we'll look at that later. So next, and then I'll just go to next here. Just leave this, use strong recommended. So I'll just type a password here, so you can type anyone. Okay, hope I get it right. Hope it's the same. Then I'm just, because this is your root password, so I hope I typed it correctly. Yeah, so here you just configure my SQL server as a window start. So you just go to next, and then yes, grant full access to the running Windows if applicable. Admin, yes, just go to next, and then now you're going to click on execute here, so that it starts installing the databases, updating the permissions, starting the server, and all this. So just always remember that password. It's very important, because when you lose the root password, since it's the database, it's very difficult. You need to uninstall and delete right up to your hidden files. So you need to be sure that you remember the password you put there, so that you can so I'm going to put that password again. So you need to, so it said connection succeeded, because it's a secure database. Is supposed to be very secure, so you need to just remember the password. Make sure it's something simple, something you can remember, and then maybe in real life it might be something more complicated, but the key is to remember it. If not, you'll not be able to log in to your database. So I'm just going to next, start up my Workbench. After setup, maybe Michelle, I can just leave that. So I'm just going to go to finish. So yeah, so good. So you can see we have welcome to MySQL Workbench. So we've successfully installed MySQL Workbench, and then as you can see here, these are some of the models. You can go to the database. So I'll just go back here. So if I close this here, so here are my connections. So if I click here, it's going to ask me for the password. So again, remember, don't forget this password. Then you can save in password in the vault. So if I click on OK, now here we are in my MySQL Workbench, and then as you can see here, this is the administration, and then here are the schemas. So the schemas are actually what is called the database, and these are the examples that we imported. Like we talked about the examples, the documentation and examples. So these are the sample data sets that we got in, which was just available for you to play with and maybe learn, or before you bring in your own data set. So this is a sample data set for you, and then we are going to bring in our own data set. So if you see here, if I just right click here and then I click on select rows limit 1000, you see these are this is the database made up of some actor ID, the first name, last update. So with this command here, this is where we are going to write our queries up here, and then you're able to say select star from this secular.actor, so this database and this table. Then you're able to get this data that comes down here. So remember that there's a limit here. So if the limit was maybe 10, let's say the limit was 10, you would see that if you run that, this is the run button, you execute the selected portion of script, you run that, you're just going to get the first 10. So it's good. You are now installed successfully your MySQL Workbench, and then you're now ready to start learning MySQL from the subsequent videos. So wish you good data luck. See you next video.